Hello. Somebody asked me what happened to my husband in 2021. I'm gonna sum it up. It was a pretty bad year, all in all. Around April of that year, he was drinking heavy. Uh, I did not drink with him, but I myself have problems with alcohol. Alcohol is not my friend. However, through hypnosis and just so many bad experiences, I do not have a taste for it anymore. Um, I don't know. By the grace of God, it's just not really an issue anymore. I don't know. I don't question something that's working right. Correct? I mean, I experiment with my kratom. I can't do marijuana. That makes me lose track. The whole sense of time totally eludes me. I wish I loved it like a lot of my friends do. They have such a good time. Not my thing exactly. But anyway, I didn't mean to go on about my vices because, hey, you don't have forever. That's how long it would probably take. But anyway, he was hospitalized because he was diabetic. He stopped eating and he was drinking. Should I tell you how much? Well, he started at 5 in the evening, a half gallon every day. But he'd start in, like, he believed in never starting until 5 o'clock because you're not truly an alcoholic if you don't start drinking before 5 in the evening. Holy hell. I don't know, but it made it so he was waking up intoxicated. And one morning he was hallucinating. So I call the fire department. They'd been called a couple of times before, but he refused to go. And they'd ask, like, who's the president and stuff. But that particular day, he was hallucinating a cowboy sitting on a couch with him. So he went in the hospital. But he was in very serious condition. His feet and legs were swollen. They assumed he was older than me, I guess, and that I was his caregiver instead of his wife. So they blamed me for a lot of it. I said, I called you. I am the one that called you and told you what he was doing. You wouldn't have had to know if not for me. I wouldn't have called you had I not been at my wit's end and I thought he was going to freaking die. And I am doing all that I can. Am I supposed to pick up a 192-pound man and set him on the pot and all of this other stuff you expected me to do? I was the one that reached out for help, but I won't go in. That's a whole nother story. Okay, he ended up being in the hospital for a year and a half. He didn't come back until part of 2022 because he also caught COVID twice. One of those times was from a caregiver who, well, I mean, she contaminated a lot of him. He was almost on a ventilator, but he came out of it because miraculously he's got, I don't know, a good connection to God, I guess. But they even at one point called me and told me that he was dying. But I did not believe them because the doctor didn't tell me that. Hospice jumped the gun and told me he was on his last month of life before the doctor examined him. Then the doctor examined him and said, no, we jumped the gun. How screwed up do you think that made me, huh? I mean, I'm already kind of a little on icy ground there already, I will admit it. But I'm not even telling you the best part. He snuck out of one nursing home. They kept taking him from one to another. He snuck out of one. That's right when can I say COVID on here? It was when, I don't know how to tell you the story without saying it, okay? He fell down an embankment. He snuck out, and he snuck out when he had to be buzzed out, which means because his clothes got stolen there. His billfold got stolen. His glasses got stolen. So he managed still to sneak out with whatever they found him to wear, fall down an embankment, and they didn't find him for hours. It was a really rough year. And no, I didn't get compensation for that. We had a lawyer. Lawyers normally don't take a case that isn't a slam dunk. At this one particular nursing home where everything had been stolen, including his cell phone and glasses and credit cards, they have a huge turnover. It the one thing he does have that they couldn't deny is a huge wound on his leg, because they let it get into flesh-eating bacteria before they moved him from the nursing home to the hospital. Yeah, it seems like a slam dunk case, right? Well, it got procrastinated, and once it goes over 2 years, you can't do anything about it. It's just that we managed to let it lapse because we were so grateful that he was at home and alive and doing well. And he came home. Mainly, he was up walking at that time. He was so determined to get out of that place that he periodically would just walk out their door. But the last place he was in, he was just doing pretty well. But I was concerned because they hadn't treated the substance that I feel put him in there, and that was the alcohol. But you know what? He gave that up, and he managed to start smoking cigarettes again in there. This is in a nursing facility, right? How do they do that? His roommate brought in cigarettes, and they shared a pack, and we were back to that. Now you wonder why I don't fight real hard to be his caregiver. No, I love him very much. But if he wants to do something, even if it is insane, you can't do much about it. And I found out that I was going to get in trouble for his actions, and I was damned if I did and damned if I didn't. So when he goes up there and says he doesn't need a caregiver, I just go along with it. I don't buy that at all. But that's why I don't get any money for that, because I'm not fighting harder for it, because I felt that the fire department was holding me responsible for the condition that he was in, which they wouldn't have even known about. And I truly think he would have left this planet had I let it go any longer without calling them. This is the only place, and I do know a firefighter, and it's a person in my family, and he is not like this. But the fire department here is the only place I have ever seen that gets worse or nastier reviews than the police department. I mean, everybody seems to dislike the police department, and they've got tons of bad reviews, but so does our fire department. I mean, they wanted to give me a ticket because Jim had messed on the couch, which is what I was calling them about, because I said his whole bodily functions are out of control, and I do not know what to do next. But you live and you learn and you go on. But there's a whole lot of reasons that 2021 was a very bad year, and I came very close to having a complete breakdown myself. Sometimes you just cannot, you can see an injustice and you just absolutely cannot believe you're in the middle of it, and it just keeps going because you know that you're not necessarily in the wrong, but you're striving to do the right thing, and it's just too overwhelming, and you couldn't turn on the radio without hearing about all of the death during that time. Yeah, I kind of freaked, but I pulled it all back together, and now I just wish I had more close friends. I really loved hearing from my friend from college on my birthday a few days ago, and there is another friend who was my best friend when I was in my early 30s. I would go hang out at her apartment every morning, and I never laughed so hard in my life about different things. I know that she's facing a whole lot of challenges health-wise, and maybe even in her marriage and things. Everybody I know got something right. So I think sometimes we're definitely here to learn. This is not a playground. This is a school, right? But anyway, I'll save all my philosophical crap for another day. But thank you for stopping in. And I thought I'd make this video because somebody asked me about 2021, because the rumor was I wasn't going to make it through that year myself. Yeah, it was that bad. And not just because, because of the high anxiety. The COVID wasn't that bad because, thank God, I have nothing that I've done. It's purely by the grace of God. I have a pretty good immune system. I just couldn't. I slept and slept and slept. I'd get up to eat and feed my pets and then fall back in the bed. And that's about all I could do. But, and I came through it. I came through all of it. But it did leave emotional scars, and I know you guys all have them, and many of you have much worse ones. But I was just summing up 2021, and no, we didn't get a dime compensation. The place that Jim was in that allowed him to walk out, and he probably had his behind hanging out. They allowed him to walk out and fall down an embankment, didn't find him for 2 hours later. Then they tried to call me and say that, oh, he had just a little spill. Of course they're going to cover it up like that. I didn't know. I didn't know until he told me and saw that he still has a huge wound on his leg, and they let it go into flesh-eating bacteria before they took him to the hospital. But they had him so heavily drugged. I didn't tell you guys this. He was so heavily drugged that he thought I was the enemy. I would come up there, and he accused me at one point of tampering with his food. And so when they moved him to another place, he told them that he didn't want to talk to me anymore. They had him on a whole lot of morphine. So he said and did a whole lot more crazy things. And that's probably the reason why he thought it was a good idea to walk out the door. Anyway, that's enough about that year. It's in the past. Oh, thank God. But anyway, yeah, I won't say that I don't have some emotional scars for it, though. And more anxiety. Thank you, 2021, for a record bad year. But thank you for stopping in. And I hope you guys are having a much better day than that year. Bye-bye.